engineer encounters. It's only that we try to impart the basic equipment with which you can later learn on your own. But education as a whole itself is not just training in a certain skill. Right now, if we are, for example, I am in the business of this teaching, so it is necessary for me to think a little about what education should be, and I feel we should share it with the students also. So training is an important part of education, of course, but that is not all of education. This is something I feel everybody should be aware of, teachers as well as students as well as parents. Okay. Training is necessary, of course, because in this world, just to make a living, you need certain skills. But education is something much more than that. Training is an important part of education. It can't be denied. But education means, I feel, strengthening your ability to learn on your own. It's not destroying that ability and just impart you some information. And I'm not saying you should come either. But when somebody asks for career advice also, I find it difficult to give an answer as this is good or something is better, because one of the biggest mistakes I think a lot of people do, and something that I myself would not have realized at your age, is that a personal growth or career growth is not something that should be seen as a race that has to be won. So personal growth is something very different, and we should all understand that every individual is different. So if every individual is different, for your personal growth you don't have to compete with others. So it need not be a race. It's only when you think that it is a race that you feel very insecure. So a lot of people at the end of their, when they come close to graduation, feel very insecure about what to do next. And this insecurity, I think, has been instilled into us from a very young age, and it's very difficult to get rid of. And I think it's because of this insecurity we always feel that if I don't do something now, I'll fall behind others. So it need not be like that at all. When you think that, when you realize that every individual is different, it means that you should do what is best for you. And it's not easy to decide what is best for you. So you will have to experiment a little, and you may have to try out different things and discard some of them. So even if you discard some of them, no time is lost. You cannot say that time of your life is wasted. It is never so, because you have learned. You have learned something from it which will be useful in life later. So all that is learned is not something that is something for which you get a degree or a certificate. So there is much more than that. So certificate is there only for training in a certain skill, just so that your employers will know that this much you know. Okay. For everything you learn, there cannot be a certificate, and all that you learn for which you don't have a certificate is not worthless. It may be much more valuable than something for which you have a certificate. So in the oil industry, and I have spent 6 years in the oil industry. Okay. So first, everybody needs a job, but once you have addressed this question of personal security, then you should look around with much more freedom and a much more open mind that what you really want to do. And it need not take 6 years as it took for me, but that was the circumstances were different then. The other thing that we have always taken for granted is competition. So in our economy, again, competition is taken for granted. So you win always at the expense of others. That is why whenever some growth takes place, whenever a lot of wealth is generated in a few people, it also generated poverty. That is because you are growing at the expense of others. So this kind of competition automatically creates insecurity in people. Even before this recession started, people in the US have been very insecure. That is because of the highly competitive nature of American society. Now, of course, with the resource crunch, that competition has become more severe, so there is more insecurity. I can give you a small example. I mean, it is an analogy of what has been happening with the help of fossil fuels in the world. Suppose you have two bubbles here, and they are connected by a tube, and here there is another tube which has a valve which is closed. Let us say we have a valve which is closed. Now both of them are in the same environment, so the pressure outside is the atmospheric pressure, let us say. I mean, just an analogy. So let's say we have some pressure P1 here and a pressure P2 here. This has a radius R1, this has a radius R2. Now the difference between P1 and this external pressure PA is because this film of liquid, this is a bubble, this has some surface tension. Okay. Now if you look at it, there is a liquid and this is a liquid film. This is a liquid film. Inside as well as outside you are having gas. So there are two interfaces here. So across each of these interfaces there will be a pressure difference of 2 sigma by R. Okay. So the difference between the pressure here and the pressure here is 4 sigma by R. So we can say P1 is PA plus 4 sigma by R1 and P2 is PA plus 4 sigma by R2. The situation changes entirely. Then of course this grows at the expense of this. So we have come very close to that stage. So that is at least qualitatively correct as far as what is happening. Study